upright.
Agatha All Along keeps shaking everything up about what we thought we knew about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the latest twist has a lot to do with who is really responsible for the Scarlet Witch's death. Even though her fate in the MCU had been sort of sealed, her story still echoes throughout the universe. Moreover, the new MVP in the last 2 released episodes of Agatha All Along is undoubtedly Lilia Calderu. Patti LuPone brings this divination witch to life, and while she may have joined Agatha's coven reluctantly, she has quickly become its heart and soul. We have seen Lilia constantly challenge Agatha's decisions, and very often she is also caught in the struggle of combating the stereotypes society has placed on witches. During the Coven's journey on the Witch's Road, she was the moral compass of the group, but despite her well-meaning nature and desire to take care of everyone, she might have unintentionally caused one of the MCU's most heartbreaking recent events. So, Episode 6 of Agatha All Along sheds light on what really happened to the Scarlet Witch's sons, in turn giving us crucial context for Wanda's dramatic shift in character during the events of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This new information sort of redefined how we understand Wanda's fall from grace, and to top that off, we had to swim through plenty of rumors about Joe Locke's teen since the show's debut, but now that Agatha All Along has finally brought Billy Maximoff back into the picture, it has left us wondering, where is his brother Tommy? It is becoming inherently clear that Wanda Maximoff's family from WandaVision is at the heart of a lot of what's happening in this new series. It also seems like Agatha All Along plans to dig deeper into the events of WandaVision, but in episodes 6 and 7, it seemed like all the big revelations in the MCU's latest chapter wanted to hold Lilia Calderu accountable for the chaos that unfolded in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Why did we come to that theory, you ask? Well, without wasting another moment, let's get right into it. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This may be a small click for you, but for us it means an awful lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Agatha All Along has been indirectly expanding Scarlet Witch's story for a long time. Even though Wanda Maximoff has been declared dead, she still seems to be a key part of Agatha All Along. I mean, her name has been mentioned at least once in every episode of the show. Plus, the series has also dropped plenty of Scarlet Witch references, and with Billy Maximoff now in the mix, it is clear that there is more to come. In episode 6, we revisited the Hex Wanda cast over Westview and see how it affects William Kaplan, particularly during a shocking car crash. When the souls of Billy and Tommy Maximoff were released beyond the Hex's boundaries, it opened the door to all kinds of new possibilities for this story. Though Billy and Tommy's story is not a direct continuation of Wanda's, it is still deeply tied to it. If you remember, Wanda's destructive journey across the multiverse was driven by her desperate search for her children after the Hex collapsed. Their voices calling out to her pushed her to find them no matter where they might be. But Agatha All Along brings quite the heartbreaking twist. While Wanda couldn't find Billy in her own universe, it turns out he had been there all along, right under her nose. Now, more recently, we have indirectly gotten a hint that the Scarlet Witch might just be alive. Before Agatha All Along's episode 7 shifted the entire focus on Lilia, there was a conversation between Billy and Agatha that sort of caught everyone's attention. Billy asked if Wanda Maximoff was truly dead, considering the ending of Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness seemed to confirm it, but Agatha's response to it was rather weird because when he presses her about it, the witch admits that she was unsure if Wanda was really dead or alive, leaving Billy and us confused and frustrated. Sure, she saw her body, but who else did? Basically, Agatha's answer was vague, a mix of a yes and no and maybe, which makes it all the more uncertain. While she claimed to have seen Wanda's body, she was not sure if anyone else's had seen it. Agatha even jokes that if Billy wants straight answers, maybe he should ask someone more straight than her. So while her answer was vague, it raises the possibility that Wanda might not be dead after all. Some fans have theorized that in the show, particularly the powers of the Witch's Road could lead to Scarlet Witch's resurrection. But based on Agatha's comments, resurrection may not even be necessary if Wanda is actually still alive somewhere. Lilia Calderu was the witch who concealed Billy Maximoff's identity through a sigil. So, one of the biggest revelations in Agatha All Along, episode 6, was undoubtedly the true identity of Joe Locke's character. 18. As it turns out, he was born William Kaplan, but after a series of strange events, his body became the new home for Billy Maximoff. The episode opened with a scene from Teen's Bat Mitzvah, where we learn through the programs lying on the table that his real name, at least at this point, is William Kaplan. It is heartwarming to see his loving parents and community celebrating him in the synagogue while he's reading out the Torah. It really shows how much love he was surrounded with while growing up. Anyways, after a crazy dance to Hava Nagila, William Kaplan takes a break from the party to go into the fortune teller tent, and guess who he finds inside? None other than Lilia Calderu. Naturally, she senses something unusual about William, and after reading his palm, she tells William that he has a long journey ahead of him, one that would be full of transformations. But then she points out that his lifeline is broken in two as the lights start flickering, which then feels a lot less reassuring. Naturally, William gets nervous, though Lilia tries to calm him, saying it could mean many things because, after all, he was growing up. Lilia then tells William that she does not need to be a psychic to know he was a good person, and advises him to live in the moment because that is all anyone can be sure of. When William goes back into the party, Lilia quietly draws a sigil on a small block of wood, slips it into his coat pocket, and immediately forgets she ever did it. Now, it is pretty obvious that Lilia sensed something important when she read William Kaplan's palms at his bar mitzvah, which likely led her to cast a protective sigil. What exactly she sensed was not clear back then, but it's quite evident that she may have realized that William would one day become Wanda Maximoff's son. That alone could put him in serious danger, given the many enemies Wanda has made in the MCU. So, Lilia may have cast a sigil to shield Billy from being exploited by other witches or from the consequences of his mother's actions. But the latest episode of Agatha All Along gave us more clarity on the Lilia's divination powers, which she has always tried to suppress, as it makes her see the future. More particularly, she has fractured visions of people's death, which means that right when she read William's palm, she saw that his death was near, which is why she asked to enjoy the present. Basically, William's bat mitzvah came to a screeching halt when Wanda Maximoff's hex was collapsing. In the ensuing chaos, William managed to escape with his parents, but on the way home, he found a sigil Lilia slid in his coat pocket and looked out the window to notice the red glow of the hex. When he asked his parents to look at the glowing red light, his mom, who was driving, got distracted by it and brutally crashed the side of the car into a tree. Unfortunately, it was the side William was sitting in. While his parents were fine, William was unresponsive, prompting them to frantically call 911 for help. Surprisingly enough, one of the responding officers is Alice Wu, who found William in a badly injured state, bleeding out in the back seat. Tragically, he succumbed to the injury on his head, but then moments later, he woke up rather shockingly, calling for Tommy, which is really all the clues you needed to understand that Billy Maximoff's soul had taken over William Kaplan's body after it was set free when Wanda brought down the Westview Hex. Basically, Billy's was a wandering and William's was a freshly dead body, and together they fused to form the Billy Maximoff Kaplan we know today. While there are many ways to interpret palm readings in real life, the true meaning behind Billy's reading becomes clear at this point. Lilia saw that William would eventually die and his body would be taken over by another host, which explains the one lifeline being fractured into two. This also sheds light on why she urged him to live in a moment, because she knew she did not have much time left and that he would transform into Billy. As Lilia confirmed in episode 7, the reason why she placed the sigil on him was to hide his identity from all magical beings, including herself and even Billy's mom, because she knew he would need more time to come to terms with his transformation. What followed after the crash was a 3-year journey for William, aka Billy, as he set off on a quest to rediscover who he really is, leading him to places he's never expected. Lilia's sigil concealed Billy from Wanda, which inevitably triggered her insane search for her kids in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. After the WandaVision finale, we know how Wanda's life took a dramatic turn as she fully embraced her power as the Scarlet Witch and gained control of the Darkhold. At first, she seemed at peace with the fates of Vision and the twins, but the Darkhold's magic eventually corrupted her. Wanda became obsessed with the thought of getting her sons back, and this obsession sent her down a very destructive path. Along the way, she crossed paths with Doctor Strange, and when he tries to reason with her, Wanda's desperation pushes her to villainous extremes, even going so far as to killing the Illuminati, who was one of Earth 838's most powerful beings. From what we know, it was Lilia's sigil that prevented Wanda from sensing that Billy was still alive. even if it was in another person's body in Eastview, the town right next to Westview. Without the sigil's protection, Wanda likely would have had no trouble finding Billy in her own universe, and since Billy seems to have a sense that Tommy is out there too, the two of them could have set out on their own quest to reunite. But because of this small sigil on a tiny wooden block, Wanda couldn't find her own son while being so near to him. This seemingly small choice led her to unleash chaos across the multiverse in her desperate search for her boys, and while we still do not know Tommy's status in the MCU, it is possible he faced a similar fate. This again raises the question of whether Wanda's entire journey in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was for nothing, because if Lilia hadn't hidden Billy from her, the Scarlet Witch might never have faced her tragic end. We are well aware of the fact that Wanda's journey in the MCU is filled with depth, darkness, and tragedy. Even though her story seems to have come to an end, many events are still closely linked to her. And with Agatha wondering if Wanda really is dead, it is possible that the Scarlet Witch might make a comeback in the MCU. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, death often isn't the final chapter, and it feels increasingly likely that we will see her again sooner rather than later. Lilia's sigil being blamed for Wanda's death also opens up a major plot hole. So by now we have one theory clear, that Lilia's sigil likely blocked any way for Wanda to locate Billy or recognize his true identity. It's still a mystery why the sigil was so strong to resist the Darkhold's magic, but it managed to do just that, convincing Wanda that her children only existed in an alternate universe, which suggests that Lilia unintentionally set off the events that unfolded in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. If the sigil hadn't been active, the Scarlet Witch might have been able to feel her two sons in her own reality. However, this theory also brings up another plot hole and complicates the story in a different way, as it suggests that the sigil has no bearing on Wanda's ability to sense her children on Earth 616. As far as we know, the sigil was placed only on William Kaplan, who currently houses Billy's soul, not on Tommy itself. In fact, we don't even have much information about Tommy at this point, aside from Billy repeatedly saying he can sense his brother but just can't figure out where he is. While it is understandable that Wanda couldn't find Billy because of the sigil, it raises questions about why she could not locate Tommy, especially since Billy, who is just starting to practice magic, was able to sense him. While this whole situation seems a bit convenient for the plot of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and the events of Agatha All Along, it definitely creates a notable plot hole. Further backing this theory is something Agatha says to Billy near the end of the episode 6. She mentions how every witch with a heartbeat can hear him, which naturally implies that without the sigil, Billy's existence should be obvious to others. Similarly, suggesting that Tommy's existence should have been just as clear from the start, at least to the Scarlet Witch. From Avengers Endgame to Agatha All Along, the MCU is packed with convenient coincidences. It might be oversimplifying things to say that Lilia is solely responsible for Wanda's actions in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. However, she is definitely part of a chain of events or the domino effect that ended with Wanda becoming a full-fledged villain in the Doctor Strange sequel. After all, in the sacred timeline, everything happens for a reason. Let's not forget that it was a rat that ultimately freed Paul Rudd's Scott Lang from the quantum realm, and ultimately kick-started the events that led to Avengers Endgame. So while Agatha All Along seems to put the blame on Lilia Calderu for Billy being invisible to Wanda's magic, it is important to remember that this was how things were meant to unfold. Plus, it is fair to say that there's likely someone or something else responsible for Wanda not sensing Tommy. Ultimately, Wanda was always going to make her own choices and spiral into multiversal madness no matter what. Still, I think Lilia is kind of a badass, especially with how she sacrificed herself at the end of episode 7 and took the Salem 7 along with her. This was a good witch, and if she actually knew the ripple effect her act of kindness would cause, I don't think Lilia would ever try to keep Billy away from his mother. But what are your opinions on this theory? Let us know about your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.